Warning, the Brasseye special deals with paedophilia and it's incredibly brutal, so you might want to click away now. There are certain topics in the art world that either need to be avoided or approached with the strictest of caution, including but not limited to suicide, rape and paedophilia. If you're gonna make a work of art tackling any of these subjects, you need to be incredibly careful at the foundation. You can push at boundaries in the art world, sure, that's fine, but these topics are much more difficult than most, and if you don't know what you're doing, you could end up causing harm to someone in the real world. If you're going to make something that deals with difficult topics, you've got to think really hard about what you're saying and why you're saying it. Personally, I would say that the Brasseye special is a good example of a TV show pushing at boundaries on a difficult subject in the right way, and it is essential viewing for anyone interested in transgressive film or TV. Brasseye was a parody investigative news show that dealt with hard-hitting topics with over-the-top spin and confusing news graphics like this.
If you plot number of animals abused against what makes people cruel, the pattern is so unreadable you might as well draw in a chain of fox heads on sticks. And if you do that, an interesting thing happens. The word cruel starts flashing.
The show was hosted by experimental comedy legend Chris Morris, who's infamous for comedy shows that piss people off. But he never pissed people off just for the sake of it. He always had an interesting point that he was trying to make by pushing at boundaries. And I do recommend watching his entire catalogue while I'm here. Brasseye was initially a short series of 6 episodes tackling difficult topics, including animal testing and drug abuse. And they followed it in 2001 with a special that tackled paedophilia. And the reaction to it was way more intense than anything Morris had ever done before. At around 3,000 complaints, the Brasseye special is often recognised as the most complained about episode of any British comedy show, and it's easy to see why. Like all of Morris's work, its heart is in the right place, and it does have an interesting point to make, but I understand why lots of people didn't really get its point, because for one thing, paedophilia is probably the hardest of all the difficult topics to even consider tackling in the art world, and for another, the special kind of ended up getting mislabeled because everyone just focused on it being a comedy special about paedophilia, when that's not really what it is. Everyone always calls it the Brasseye special about paedophilia, hell, I just did at the start of this paragraph. But its actual title is Paedogeddon, and that title kinda makes it clear that it's not so much about paedophilia as it is about the way that paedophiles are presented in the media, and its ultimate point is that the way the media deals with the subject could end up doing much more harm than good. It sets its point up beautifully with this joke.
Why can we no longer think of the British Isles without the word pedof in front of them?
The Pedof Isles could easily be a Sun headline. Brasseye as a whole, and this special in particular, is well versed in the language of media sensationalism, and it uses that to underline how the image of paedophiles presented in the media is a caricature, and the way that the media does that is actively counterproductive. People can't help the very visceral reaction we have towards the concept of paedophilia because paedophilia is one of the most disgusting things that anyone can think of. But the point is that media presentation of paedophiles caricatures the paedophile as such a horrific creature that it gets to the point where they don't even seem real to us. They're a terrifying concept from our nightmares, and the point is that making them feel so unreal could cause actual harm. Because think about it here, if your kid comes up to you and says that Uncle Pete molested them, in your brain, paedophiles are this amorphous, monstrous, abstract concept. Uncle Pete doesn't look like what I think a paedophile looks like, a cartoonish image that's been formed by the media. I know Uncle Pete, he'd never do something so unspeakably evil. Media presentation of paedophiles has been distorted in such a way that when you're faced with a real one, you might not recognise them for what they are, and so they get away with it. So what the Brasseye special does to prove this point is it takes the presentation of the paedophile as so far beyond a monster and exaggerates it even further, so it looks completely ridiculous to us.
Which is why your children could very soon be splatted by a roboplegic wrongcock.
And to further prove this point, the special even tricks celebrities and politicians into participating in the show with a dumb, overblown story about an online game where paedophiles can molest children over the internet using gloves with sensors.
We believe that paedophiles are using an area of internet the size of Ireland, and through this they can control keyboards.
And this is actually an incredibly important point because a couple of the politicians featured on the show complained about being tricked into spouting the lies fed to them by the programme makers in the interview sections. But they had their complaints thrown out by the Broadcasting Standards Commission on the grounds that Brasseye had shown how those MPs were willing to speak with authority on subjects that they had absolutely no expertise in. Hey, does anyone remember when that used to be something that politicians were ashamed of? But anyway, the point of the special then gets underlined when they have a paedophile in person in the studio, played by Simon Pegg of all people. And this is easily one of the darkest moments in the history of British comedy.
I believe that intergenerational sex is appropriate within loving...
Sex with children?
Relation...
That's my son Johnny, all right? Have a look at him. Now, are you prepared to tell me you want to have sex with my son?
No, I don't.
Why not?
I don't fancy him.
What do you mean?
I just don't. I don't find him attractive, I'm sorry.
Now, did you laugh at that? 'Cause I sure as hell didn't, and this scene leaves a pretty horrible taste in your mouth. It's a joke, yes, a hideously dark joke, and incredibly tasteless, but its inclusion is important to the structural integrity of the entire thing, because the point is that you've just spent 20 minutes being confronted with ludicrous depictions of paedophiles. But now you're being shown one in person, talking about his desires as if it's normal and acceptable. The point being, these depictions of paedophiles are media exaggerations. This is a real person. And that's the difference, and that's what you need to recognise. Paedophiles will always seem like ordinary people because it is people who do these horrible things. And yeah, it does feel sick to admit that, but it's true, obviously it is. As much as we might want to deny it, we are members of the same species. This joke is fucking sickening, but the special doesn't work without it. The Brasseye special tells the most uncomfortable truth in the most shockingly brutal way possible, and yet... it was never gonna wash, was it? Let's face it, the visceral gut reaction that people have to paedophilia was always going to dwarf anything that the special was there to say. So the backlash and furore was pretty much guaranteed from the second that it was commissioned. And that is a damn shame. I personally think the special is a genius work of satire. Its point is salient, and the way it presents its point is calculated and hideously intelligent, and its point needs heeding. But sadly, it probably won't be, because let's face it, this topic is just too difficult to talk about. However well it does it, the Brasseye special proved that transgression always comes with a price.